In this video, dramatic movie Blade, we will discuss the storyline, summarize the plot, and explore the casting character. Additionally, we will cover the movie's production data and box office performance. Finally, we will provide you with and share personal reactions. So let's get started. On August 21, 1998, New Line unveiled Wesley Snipes' R-rated Marvel the adaptations played in theater, where it would go on to be a late summer hit and gross $131 million globally. The Hollywood Reporter's original review is below. Put aside this genre already. The vampire movies gets you another reworking a new line, excessively gory and unpleasant blade, staring Wesley Snipes as a half-bred mortal with big guns and muscle, with determined to be rid the world of the enterprising bloodsucker. Based on characters from Marvel comic book, Blade might such its way to be a respectable opening weekend at the box office. But there is nothing noteworthy about its cinematic kill fest. Crossover appeal is unlikely from either side. Of the track's mainstream audiences will stay away and vamp fans of all color will be wary. And it should be credited to the screenwriter. David S. Goyer, the scenario is backed with a new angle on the appointed total one. From serum to be sunblock, but it is censure is a big word. Snipe grimaces aloud as his own note character goes through hell. He is joined by the viewer having to suffer through an overwrought slaughter that drags on for an ungodly 2 hours. The film begins with a literal bloodbath, as portrayed at a rave clubhouse in an abattoir, are sprinkled with the blood in the preparation for a communal massacre. Bursting into a ruined forces gang's fun is a blood. Half man, half monsters played a jaywalker, can leap off tall building and has another supernatural attribute. But thanks to daily dirty supplement, it does not crave the red stuff. His ally is fatherly Whistler, a human whose family was killed by the grave. When a band to a Kris corpse comes to life in the hospital and attacks nurse Karen, Blaze's usual hardline approach softens, and he whisks her way to safety. After Whistler suspects it's too late to stop her changing, the pair keep her around and she eventually joins the struggle. Meanwhile, outside Nick Mercer's Deacon is taking up the centuries-old vamp society, with his group guzzling parties like the opening sequences. How exactly can one be born a vampire? Opposes his power play. Frost rises to the occasion and dispatches the ordered giant with a trip to the seashore at dawn. The evil ones are everywhere according to this movie, with many humans allies that we have convenient there too. Frost's master plan is to harvest some of blood, precious juices to be awakened the blood god and excemented. Other nasty highlights include a 1,000-pound vamp Archie who is a friend with a garlic sauce, and the climatic confrontation between the blade and his mother, Platon as an undead one. The violence is constant and repulsive. From relatively tame examples like blades and shredding, the tricks were highlighted to be Wrestler's brutal demise. Production-wise, the film rise up to this gem is a press note from Seth Marshall Karkme. Red is an extremely important color in the film. Sticking their neck out with the gruesome success and special effects makeup artist Greg Cannon and visual effects supervisor Chuck Comiskey. Needless to say, the concept of this outlay. Additionally, are not familiar to with sophomore director Stephen David Hunter originally published August 20. Welcome to this week in general history. Their Tim Grayson and built the house of the Graysons and Leach protocols. Take down looking back at the world's greatest, scariest, most infamous genre movies on the week that they were first released. I'm going to be shoot a Star Wars of Black Vampire film in a 2018 oral e-story of Entertainment Weekly. That's all screenwriter David S. Goyer has approached New Line recording his big screen vision for a Marvel character. And so on August 21, 1988, Blade hit the theaters, helping to prove the availability of R-rated comic book film brand. More importantly, Black Superhero at a multiplex. It was also the culmination of Wesley Snipes' evolution from one of the 1990s most promising dramatic actor into a rewriting the action hero. But despite some 90s success, everybody in this movie are love sure techno-blade, it's campy. Kung Fu films throwing in a comic book drop and vampire lore. On paper that sounded like a wild mixture of different elements but Snap believed it would work. All of my friends, we have never seen a cool, shaft like the vampire. That it carried out the same charm. The 90s had its share of related comic book film, including The Crow, Judge Dredd, and Barbed Wire, but none of this based on the Marvel or properties, and with good reason. The once legendary Count Planey was in a financial pitfall, and the last time they would be trying to mount a serious big screen adaptation. But Blade was different because it was going to be written by Goy, a guy who loved comic book and had worked on this script for 1996. The curiosity of the Angel Plus, now New Line, was feeling good about superhero cinema after its modestly budget 1997 film. According to Goyer, who would go on to shape the Rock Knight film, with Christopher Nolan, the studio decided that Blade should be given a hefty budget of almost $50 million. It was the first time in my career when I got to write exactly what I wanted to write, and I did not have a bunch of editorial interference. The screenwriters later said. Meanwhile, Snipe was looking to solidify his status as an action star. Earlier in the decade, the former Major League actor had won accolades for serious role in Jungle Fever, and Hugh Jackman proved himself to be an accommodating pair. I got to know Jack until I died. Snipe said 1998 talking about his role as Fear. Some rocking pain Nino Brown in New Jack City. New Jack would be 1965 in a wheelchair and still running thing, but it's not going to be travel internationally and it's pulled a limit on how long I have a career. Interestingly enough, Snipes had actually talked to Marvel about playing Black Panther back in mid-90s, where black filmmakers like Johan Singleton and Mario Van Peebles being considered. I think Black Panther spoke to me because he was a noble, and he was the antithesis of the stereotype presented and portrayed about the African history and the Great Kingdom of Africa. Snipes told a Hollywood reporter a few years ago. It had cultural significance. Social significance, it was something that a black community and a white community had not seen before. But when that project failed to get off the ground, he jumped on Blade, serving as a producer as well, in this brooding, cocky character. Snipes saw someone who combed his own acting heroes and influences, including John Kelly. Initially, Goyer had hoped a relatively unknown young filmmaker would direct Blade, David Fincher, who is a developed the secret bid. But after that fell through, another up and come, British director Stephen Norrington. The Blade shoot was sometimes tense. Norrington quickly developed a reputation from not being the best people person but it throughout a specific vision to the project. He was much more than a director. He was creating and really designing he would around the story, inspiring the visualization of the project. Blade's cinematographer Theo Van Der Sand told has a difficult director but had very good suggestion. The question was whether the artists would be interested in a black superhero. They would be probably never heard of. Coming out at the tail end of December 1998, Blade went straight to number one, knocking Saving Private Ryan from the top spot. The movie rolled off box office for 2 weekends, becoming Super Rise's hit and staying in a theater throughout September and into early October. It was nice because it has a leading man to that point, opening the door from two successful sequels, and some incredible support from Blade. Trinity Oster Patton Oswald, who claimed that Snipe hated working with a Goyer, who directed the third installment. so much that he insisted on only communicating via post-it note, which he signed as Blade. More importantly, Blade ushered in a wave of martial art fixed genre movies, including the matrices, which made kung fu movies from thrillingly cutting edge. And soon there was a fresh wave of exciting R-rated action films. And of course, the film legitimized the commercial firepower of black superhero. Greer has mentioned that it has initially pushed back from the studio, which wanted if Blade could be wide, but before Blade. Black superhero movies had either been comedies or bombs. Blade had changed that impression, especially in our modern age of polished, super popular superhero movie. Blade feels like a time capsule from a time when comic book movie could be this Orny and Scarfy. It's opening the rave scene with everyone ultimately drenched in blood, still feels strange transition. No way something like that is happening in the Black Widow. Everyone in this movie take the martial seriously, but the film is a lot less self-important than your typical DC or Marvel story. And Synopsis is just fantastic, equally comfortable with the blurred action sequences and dramatic moment. Unlike Nicolas Cage, another overacted actor who dove into the blockbuster, Snipes did not become a cartoon of the Simpsons by going for bigger play there. Unfortunately, Snipes would soon run into trouble with the federal government, sentenced in 2008 to 3 years in prison for tax evasion. As for Norrington, he went from Blair to direct the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. As far as Blair's impact on the black cinema, the progress was slow, and no doubt hampered by the Catwoman's commercial failure. But Black Panther, which Snipes had dreamed about going years earlier, and did all about the better black soup could be box office. And no doubt Black Panther's success has, in turn, have new interest in the Blade. In 2019, it was announced that two-time Oscar winner will be playing character in a Marvel Studio reboot. Marvel had Kevin Feige and Ali and pitched the idea to him, which he immediately said yes to. Publicity Snap has praised the casting, but back in 2018, he propounded that kind of actor could possibly take over as Blade. Skill-wise, there is not a lot of guys out here and dance. That do the martial art, that act well and can have the blood flavor, he said. Later adding, they gotta be in shape and have some sex appeal. Blade has some sex appeal. He sounded skeptical there was anybody after them who could do it. Maybe you know somebody. I don't know. Snaps will always be a Blade, but still, I think, satisfied of Snaps particularly strikes after his big gig. After being watching the fantastic Daredevil series based on Netflix's. When first released, Blade was a surprise hit. It was Marvel's most successful film at the time. Marvel's first film theatrical release. However, the dark was abysmal and a complete failure both critically and financially. Blade was somewhat of an experimental movie, taking a lesser known character from the comics and giving it hard a rating. The payoff was significant as not only was it financially successful, but it has launched the Marvel's brand into the film industry. Blade's success have paved the way of X-Men 1000 and Spider-Man 2002. The movie restored faith in the comic book genre, which had taken its fair share of the beating from the failure film, such as Batman and Robin. The story opened up with our titular character out on the job, which just so happened to be a hunting fucking vampire. The opening scene is one of the best character introducers I have witnessed. It grabs you and does not let up. During his hunt, Blade comes upon a victim, shows pity on her and adds her. From her, the story kind of just unfolds. It introduces us to the villain Deacon Frost, who represents a new, younger, braver gave of a vampire who challenges the elder vampire. This surprising in the vampire rank ultimately leads up to an approaching event with our protagonist need to be stopped. What impressed me most about the Blade after rewatching it is know how little it holds your hand. so there are entire scene of the exposition, while it feels more like world building and bringing in a more modern approach to the vampire lore. Blade is not an origin story, which I love. It feels like every first film in the comic book genre has to slow how the hero became sad hero, which is becoming a tried trope of the genre. The film never needs to be beat you ever the ahead, either with the Blair's motivation. It's establishing early he's a hunter or the hunter, and his mission to slay them all which stays consistent throughout the movie. Our hero here is both focused and reasoned. He casts through his force with extreme efficiency, with no hesitation. It tells us that he's been doing this his whole life. This film is presented in a fast, energetic, stylish manner. Extreme camera angles shift to bring us right in on top of the action. Set pieces from both the human world and the vampire world are saturated with blinding lights and floating shadow. It makes for a visual with subtle expresses. A visual cue I noticed was the younger vampire congregated in flashy, colorful and modern location, while the elder vampire resided the rock and the early ancient looking environment. The new wave of the undead lived in a world that was very much alive. The soundtrack to the film has a mix and match of hip hop, Chaco and rock which stand up to display. Techno music player during action scene, giving them a kinetic feel. While slow hip hop beats play during the more sombre part of the film. The music enhanced this film with some truly memorable tune. I still have no on my playlist today. Another stand aspect of the Blade is that it what makes an R-rated film. Arsenal is rating the Risma drives. Today's superhero have mass appeal, so studios tend to present them in a more teen-friendly manner. That is why we don't see Wolverine deciding his opponent into bloody spaces. Blood is bloody and gory because it needs to be. Vampire vacaces creature and disposing of them in dirty work. And Blade certainly has a flair for showing us. Blood and limbs paint a wall in a blade. Blood is burn and it is this thing great and it's delight to watch. These gadgets are great as if both side of vampire but also look awesome. Any excuse to have a samurai sword in a film is fine by me. Wesley Snipes is a fantastic as a leading man in the film. His delivery is bold, calculated, and hardened. Blade does not see himself as a hero, more a man on a mission. Denzel Washington and Forest Whitaker were considered for the role of Blade, but Wesley was a man for the job his martial art background allowed for brutal fight scene. Snipe was not just the leading actor of the film, but also the lead fight coordinator. Every fight scene in the film, he did himself and is evident because there is no need for flashy camera. Carso disguise or stunt double. What we are seeing is a Wesley Snipe doing how blow for blow and such to be was. It's not only snipe martial art that make Blade truly shine. Kristofferson Wheeler is superb as a mature sidekick. He's got some of the best line and Travis are lovable. Miserable old bastard. Unfortunately, the final of the film is pretty poor. We never fully understand what the stylistic events are about to occur, and the final battle becomes a standard sword fight, after that ends shockingly quickly. The final also relies heavily on CGI, which has not dated well, and I doubt it even looked good back then. Stephen Soft's Deacon Frost makes for a pretty laughable villain. He is neither physically imposing nor cunning enough to become across as an arch nemesis to Blade. While I enjoy the idea of the young rebelling against the old, the new wave of some vampires are just as easy. They present the edge of youth of the 90s, meaning the fashion and dialogue is laughable dated. I am pretty sure one villain says article. The lack of any real horror element is sorely missed, especially with our dark visual and vampire history available. It feels like a missed opportunity. The sequel directed by the Del Toro was far more effective at integrating horror. I would definitely recommend anyone who is a fan of the comic book genre and action film to give Blade a watch. His god versatile and his substance inspired and is probably the biggest contributor to your favorite superhero film in the last 20 years. On August 21, 1998, New Light unrevealed Wesley Snipes' R-rated Marvel's adaptation. Put a stake in his genre already. The vampire movies gets another, reworking New Light's excessively gory and unpleasant blade stating Wesley Snipes as a half-breed, immortal with big gun and musical, who is determined to be ready, void of enterprisingly bloodsucker. Based on a character from Marvel comic book, Blade must slash its way to a respectable opening weekend at the box office. But there is nothing noteworthy about his cinematic kill fest. Crossover appeal is unlikely from either side of the track. Mainstream audiences will stay away, and Vampire for Color will be wary. And this should be credited to the screenwriter David S. Goyer. The scenario is packed a new angle on the point he touched once. From serum to be sunblock, but at its center is a big void. The film began with this literal blood pot, as warrior as a web glove he hosts in an abattoir, are sprinkled with the blood in the preparation for communal massacre. Bursting into ruin, the furious gangs fund his blade and avenging a life for his normal flock. His mother died after a bite in the neck as they gave birth to him. There is a 1998 American superhero horror film directed by Stephen Norrington and written by David S. Goyer. A half-mortal, half-immortal is out to be avenged his mother death and rid the world of vampire. The modern-day technologically advanced vampire he is going after is searching for his particular blood type needed to be human, an evil god who plays a crucial role in their plan to execute the human race. Being a Marvel fan and loving the horror genre, this was the perfect mix for me. During the late 90s and early 2000, comic book movies were not taken seriously. We got to see Superman, Batman, Supergirl, Marvel's Captain America. Fantastic Four, it's it. This film presented a darker hero to screen at that time. The movie starts with a bang establishing Blade, a human vampire hybrid that possesses the supernatural abilities of the vampire without any of their weakness. Blade aids Rave, a club owned by the antagonist, a vampire named Deacon Frost. Police take one of the vampire to the hospital, where he feeds on a homogeneous Karen Johnson and escape. Blade takes Karen to the safe house, where she is tutored by his old friend Abraham Whistler. Whistler explained that he and Blade have been making a secret war against the vampire using weapons based on their elemental weaknesses. At a council of pure blood vampire elder meeting, Frost, the leader of a faction of younger vampire, is rebuked for trying to decide between vampire and human. As Frost and his kind are not natural born vampire, they are considered socially inferior. This is a suitably plot devices in the movie from the villain, which intrigued me. I do think they needed more of this than they ultimately had. I wanted to see more of the social of vampire society. Police officer Krieger attacks Karen at her apartment. Familiar human loyal to vampire. Blood subdue Krieger and uses him to locate an vampire pebble he comes upon Pearl. A morbidly obsessed vampire and dirted him. But a UV light injury revealing that Deacon want to be Commander, ritual where he would use 12 pure blood vampire to awaken the Trevor. He didn't head out Blade, inject himself with a special serum that surprises him to his drunk blood. However, the serum is a beginning to lose its effectiveness due to aversive. Another suitable plot devices and the credit the writer. For this, I like to see the hero challenged with his mortality and vulnerability. Karen is confident that she can cure Blade's blood test, but it would take her years of creating it. Frost and his men tagged died out. In fact, Whistler and Abel Karen, when Blade returned and helped Whistler. Comrades decided loved these sequences. It gave depth in that he loved Whistler, he took the dead, and it motivated him in the end. Even Blade's attempt to rescue Karen from first penthouse is so shocked to find he is still alive and matter. who revealed that she came back the night she was attacked and was brought in thus by Frost, who appeared and revealed himself as the vampire, who by her blade is then subdued and taken to the temple of the eternal night, where Frost planned to perform the summoning ritual for complete the patron and obtain the power of love Magra. In this decade, it's hard to be factual when movies based on Marvel's anime comic franchise Simply Cloud could not make it out of the development hell. Prior to Blade, what all did we have? That graphic Captain America movie from the 80s where he had rubber ear. Those incredible Hook TV movies starring Bill Bixby. Roger Corman produced the Fantastic Four flick that was never meant to be seen by the living. Aside from the cheap, embarrassing garbage we will all like to forget, Marvel characters just did not exist on film in 1998. And then Black snuck in under the radar because really, who the fuck is fake? After a surprise vampire attack, Karen finds herself thrust into the bizarre underworld Blade the Vampire Hunter, and his mentor Whistler. Blade is a jaywalker, a half vampire who possesses all of the undead's strength, but none of their weakness. He uses those powers to be steady bloodsucker. He may be running short on time, as his vampire half is slowly eclipsing his human side. At the top of Blade, Heartless is Deacon Frost, a powerful vampire, nightclub owner, politician. If you have never unraveled Storm of the Dracula comic, then I would highly recommend you sang some of the essential collection. If they are still in print, they are some of the publisher best output of the 70s that does not involve Conan the Barbarian, suplexing the gorilla and chopping the head of a king blade, as he was originally conceived, was a dude with an afro and green goggle, who talked jive and played by his own rule. He was awesome. Don't get me wrong, but we will have director Stephen 1998 feature film to be thanked for updating Blade for a modern Odysseus. Screenwriter David's punching up of Blade's origin, alongside Wesley Snipes' portrayal of the character, have since become the singular interpretation of the vampire hunter, having migrated to and surpasses the source material. Blade was never a daywalker in the comic before this movie, but he sure as hell is now. Now that it matter, I suppose. Three feature film and a TV series later, and a Joe still can't hold on more than one miniseries every 5 years. On the topic of the Blade movie, however, I think the fact that very few people outside of the comic shop knew how this guy was lent to its success. There was no cast iron image of the character in the public eye, and no precise acceptation. The filmmaker were faced to relent a total say listener into an absolute. Norrington art direction is very lip, and at times maybe too much so. The dude seems to have a nightclub and rape fetish, and the entire film can probably be mapped out as a string of parties. I did not mind much of his music video approach to things. I actually liked how the fast forward or jazz looked and the techno music complemented the fight sequences quite well, enhancing several visual cues. Other moments, such as the sequences where some Japanese schoolgirls sing a helium pitched rap song that goes on 4 minutes so angry. When Deadpool came out in 2016, fans hailed it as a novelty due to its R rating. But Deadpool was not the first comic book movie to be rated R. That honor goes to the 1998 in movie Battle Blade. At the time, Brill was a slightly lesser known Marvel character who premiered in the 1972 issue 10 of the Tomb of Dracula, a vampire hunter. Blade's mission is to destroy all vampires, especially the one who killed his mother while she was pregnant with him, causing Blade himself to be born a half vampire. Even before the movie's release, Blade had quite a following. He had a fascinating storyline half vampire hunter, who has all of vampires at trend, yet none of their weakness except for the vampiric. That's for human. So we get to see a very dark superhero who wants to be save humanity and struggle to keep his inner thirst in a check. 1998 Wesley Snipes starred in a Blade live-action film, which was really the first newest well-made superhero film. Comic book movies did not have a great reputation back then, and it was high time to say if a superhero story could be adapted to film in a way that was engaging and exciting with a heavy dust or darkness. The film opens with a pregnant woman attacked by a vampire, being rushed toward a hospital, with baby Blade's despair as ready to come tearing through that birth canal. Blade's mom presumably goes away of a many movie, and TV mom before her by doing any childbirth. Jumping 30 years ahead being to a Sir Club with an uncomfortable scene. But this club is a special. Why? Because it's a vampire club that stays its patron with blood from a sprinkler system. This causes any human in the club to be naturally freak out. But the vampires are super into it. Of course, the numbers shrieking are restore the vampire to the presence of walking value meal into a meat test. But Blade is here now, and you know it's going to be a supernatural blood part, and it is awesome. There's a blood spraying anywhere. Vampires are getting disintegrated left and right. Notice how the vampires just crumble on liver but impact. No muss, no fuse, no cleanup. Except the vampire is not completely dead. It springs back to life, attacking a hematologist named Karen Jensen. Luckily, Blade shows up at the hospital to finish the job and bring Karen to his safe house. And he is Major Whistler. Whistler is confused by Blade bringing a straight human. Blade says she was beaten. Whistler tells Blade I should have killed her. Blade very astutely remarked that no, he did not. In fact, kill her. Whistler's expression clearly says, "Damn it, Blade would be better not get killed because of your honor." Karen is now shows sign of the vampirism, so she sticks the Blade to find a curve because that bite has suddenly made her a walking undead magnet. We find it out at a bunch of a local vampire and planning something big. You see, in this world, vampires have a definite hierarchy where natural born or pure blood. Vampires are considered socially superior to be turned vampire. The born vampires did not seem have any strong ability or power versus the turned vampire. They are just better because they said so. But one turned vampire named Deacon Frost decided he is headed with these snooty pure blood, and he is going to be executed, alter, and use whatever pure blood are left to resurrect an all-powerful blood, good and infuse himself with the power. Deacon's missing a key ingredient to resurrect his blood good. Vampire blood, any guess who is needed? Honestly, I am surprised his hierarchy was not outwritten a lot sooner. It does not seem as the pure blood and any particular fall safe in place to prevent an oppressing. They were already on shaky ground. I admit Deacon is not the most compelling of villain. He is just too goofy to be taken seriously. And he looks like that frat boy who stays out all night snorting cocaine and outing with your local Jacob Bell. Play will forever be memorable. But Deacons Forest want to go down as one of Marvel's greatest villains. In this meantime, Karen creates a vampire cure for infected humans, like herself, and she invents a serum that can make their other vampire explode. At this point, my inner child can't wait to see some vampire go captive. Blade has all of the darkness and gestures violence you would expect to see in a vampire superhero movie. Don't expect much in the way of humor like the Deadpool. Blade keep a pretty serious tone most of the time. It's also very big, not so except to see a gloomy atmosphere. glitter coat, and a fight scene that to be 90s techno. I could not call this movie especially deep, but it's highly enjoyable to watch. All in all, Blade is a fun, dark, delightfully violent action movie. And more importantly, it's a well executed comic book movie that proved the genre was what it is for acting. Not a time when too many movies are built from flat, TV style visual of people standing around talking. Movies based on comic books represent one of the last best hope for visionary filmmaking. It's ironic that a comic which borrowed their early visual style from movies should now be returning the favor. Blood setting Wesley Snipes as a killer of the vampire who is engaged in an forbidden session of the art is a movie that relishes the high visual style. It uses the extreme camera angle, the bizarre costumes and sets, the exaggerated shadows, the confident cutting between long shot and extreme close-up. It lends ahead in pure bizarrely imagery. Of course, anyone's potentially attending the film in the hope of a recent storyline is going to be a disappointed. Better to see in it a comic book term, as an episode in a master made, in which even the most satanism confrontation is not quite the end of thing, because there has to be another issue next month. There is another word, meaning it is a real word. Blade based on a Marvel's comic hero. Is played by Snipes as a man on the border between human and vampire. Blade's origination story, his mother was bitten by a vampire while pregnant, infecting her child, who lived in the street until being adopted by a man named Whistler, who masterminded a lonely war against vampire. Now Blade is to be manhood. Is a separate head of the battle, as vampires separate their influences through the major cities. One out a chief gathering ground, secret after hour dance secure where victims are lured by the promises of forbidden trail, only to be eaten and converted. The movie is built around a series of major action scenes. The first one features on the plotted of an old friend from 1970s Hong Kong movie. The flying kill introduces a knife-edged combat that's been sliced and returned to be owner. Very neat. Blood encounter DJ Karen Jensen, a blood specialist who has been bitten by a badly burned vampire brought in for emergency treatment. Can she he saved? He returned her to be Whistler's secret lab for an injection of liquid garlic, which gives her a fighting chance. Blood himself lies under a daily reprieve. Whistler's serum keeps him on the human side, although he may be building up a resistance to it. A raid against Blood are the forces of vampirism, represented by his arch-enemy Deacon Frost. There's a lot of mythology underlying Frost's plan, including the evocation of an ancient vampire god who may return to lead the creature in their final conquest. The setting for the climatic scene is a phantomagoric vampire temple where Blade must risk everything in a titanic showdown. The movie, directed by Stephen Norrington, is another in a recent group of new line cinema movies that combine comic book imagery, noir universes, and the visual heritage of German experiences. Some I would rank it third from Dark City and Spawn. This material is obviously moving in the direction of pure animation, which is the took indie often strives to evoke. And there are some short-haired use effects to evoke animation freedom from gravity and other physical law. Notice, for example, an unbroken shot where Blair takes Dr. Johnson in his arms and make an improbable leap from a high window to a far rooftop. Can't be done, especially not with him seemingly floating down in a mid-air. To a safe landing, but the dreamlike feel of a step is effective. Wesley Snipes understands the material from the inside out and makes an effective blade because he knows that a key ingredient in any interesting superhero is not omnipotence by vulnerability. There is always a kind of sadness underlying the personality of the great superhero. who have been given great knowledge and gift but few consolation in their battle against evil. The fun all seem to be on the villain's side, by embodying those feelings. Snipers blades given the movie that edge of emotion without which it would simply be special effect. Of course, you have to bring something to it yourself, preferably a sympathy for the host comic book superheroes. This is the kind of movie that gets better the movie who you know about the genre. You might expect a man named Blad would be handing out prizes at a carnival game somewhere in Indiana. But Fairytale had a different plan in the Marvel universe. Blade is a daywalker hell-bent on dismantling the entire vampire world while avoiding any scarf on his leader ensemble. In the movie trilogy from New Line, the titular character is played by the Wesley Snipes, an actor with all swagger needed to play a more brooding demi-vamp. The first installment in the Blood trilogy continues to entertain more than 2 decades later. Many other vampires hunting a endeavor have attempted to emulate in 1998. Films leak out packaging into an oval. Venues of Marvel Studios bringing their own blade into the fold. The time is ripe to be revised the classic and waxing in a crimson soaked glory. Around the time vampires are exploding like angry sorcerers from Big Trouble in Little China. You may be pondering the film final plot point. After all, the primary villain taken from Stephen Dorff taps into some cryptic method in order to achieve his endgame. We have not exactly translated all the ancient vampire scroll, but we have a good idea of what Mr. Frost is up to behind. It's quite a mischievous game. Let's finally get to the heart of what happened to another Blade. Curie Bloodbot, your chief today, derives his name from the very tool he uses to fill the blood-sucking antagonist. Blade prefers to test his enemy with an acid-attached titanium blade that reduces vampire to be fluttering white of carbon. The anger fueling these ratios killing Kris in well deserved. Blade's mother was attacked by a vampire when she was pregnant with him. Their fear and hatred for Blade is clogged in Chelsea because of his ability to walk in the sunlight without bursting into the flame. The vampire's physical strength and agility is also his to wield against them. These traits were created under very more rare circumstances, making Blade's blood a highly desirable commodity. It's important to know exactly what type of creature Blade is in order to understand why his enemy want to get their hands on him so badly. It is not just for weekends, it's also an attempt to improve their cursed existence. Before Blades introduces us to overhero, we get a crash course in vampiric seduction. A man is dragged along by a frank tent press toward a city, suddenly turned into a meat packing plant. If you are asking yourself what type of meat, then you are asking the right question. The unwitting appetizer of a man continued to follow the vampire into her lair despite all signs pointing to danger. Even a corpse on a meat block cannot deter this man from descending further into an underground nightclub. Onward by so more than an aggressive kiss. Once inside the dance club itself, we are introduced to an apocalyptic world's nightmare. The strobe light illuminating a sea of secretly alert and dead that stare as a fire sprinkler system rains on human blood. The scene laid out before is not just about sex appeal and upcoming action sequences that will hook us for the films entirely. It's also an introduction to the mindset of the primary antagonist. Deacon Frost, there's a quick glimpses of Frost among the lustful dance crew, and a later conversation informs us that the entire club is his establishment. Rather than hiding in the shadow like his vampire brethren, Frost chosen to be pushed further into the human population. The best law to a heart and the nightclub is a sprinkle system there. Its last few drops of the hemoglobin as players step into the room. After a dazzling display of the swordsmanship ascended by vampire, bursting into the cloud of glowing gas. Blade is not his killing spree by nailing Forrest a lieutenant. Just before law enforcement arrive, Blatosis and incidentally drives at a willy vamp and sneak out unnoticed. Officers then enter the scene seeked in a human blood with a man on fire stepper to the wall. They demeanor paint an image of a typical Tuesday autumn patrol. This final act in the opening scene is what leads Blade to his greatest obsess in the storyline. Dr. Karen Jensen's her knowledge of the hematology is extremely valuable in the Blade's battle against a vampire apocalypse. Luckily for our hero, Dr. Jensen happened to be in the room when Quinn's scared body is being examined. When Quinn wakes up from his little charcoal nap, he immediately sinks his teeth into all the neck can find. Dr. Jensen's included Blade is at the hospital to finish off Quinn and stumble across the wounded doctor. Rather than leaving her to be deal with her wounds herself, Blade decided to take her along with him. Mostly because Dr. Jensen reminded him of his mother, shown by a flashback to the brief moment after she gave birth to him. A day we definitely all remember. Once back at Blair's safe house, Karen is introduced to the vampire's hunter friend, Abraham Whistler, the two give her a quick intro dump about the war between the vampire and human. The gist is that vampires are bad and they kill human. More pressing is the fact that Dr. Johnson has been bitten and the shot of garlic they pump into her brain is not guaranteed to stop the process of the vampire transformation. There are two possible reactions. The doctor could have pained peeling body adult for several days, or she could become thirsty for the very liquid she swore to keep inside of people. While Whistler and Blood are telling Karen that she is basically damned. Foss is facing the music as well. The Fiasco with Blade has vampire elder in RTC. Centuries of sorcery are being forced a person's venture into the business of blood-fueled nightclub. Frost sees his kind as a rightful rules of the planet. It is obvious that he also has a chip on his shoulder. No doubt stemming up from the elder's disdain for his lack of vampiric purity given that he was not born a vampire. The combination of daddy's issue and a superiority complex result in Frost's well-laid plan involved ancient grip and long lost for her sake. The elders of the vampire council have been around for a long time, given how slowly vampires age. We can safely assume it takes many centuries for them to obtain an AAPR card. It would stand to reason that the newfound technological advances are mystical to elderly folk into the hunted during the Shakespeare's era. So when it's said that the ancient scripture is written in a dead language that can never be translated, they see it as a absolute. But Frost has something most grandpaps cannot understand. A computer from 1998 Frost is able to be used as software, computing power to sift through all the ancient jumble and uncover the mythical tale of a Magra. Frost seeks to inject a ritual that would release the blood god named La Magra. The mythical creatures are released would give the power needed for vampire to rise up and take their place as rulers of the planet. The ritual calls for 12 purple blood vampire, and Frost knows just where to be gathered some up. The Elder Council, the top John, would never allow for such a cup. So Frost drags him out to be beached and he forces the elder vampire to view sunrise. Frost and his gang sit safely cocooned in motorcycle helmet and littered towards surrounded by the unviolent now. There's only one major ingredient they need to be unleashed, a Magra Blade himself. Black at Blade's safe house. Dr. Jensen is refusing to accept her fate as the newborn vampire. She has not undergone the transition yet, but Whistler and Blade insists that she will change eventually and had best prepare accordingly in order to help her face his newfound affliction. They hand her a gun and send her on her merry way. When Karen arrives home, she is met with a familiar, which is exactly what Blood is, much to the doctor's jargon. Blood uses her web to uncover another lead. Dr. Jensen is pretty about the betrayal, but she can't deny it work. Not only she is certain she needs to be strict with a vampire hunter in order to stay alive, but the shifting maneuver is also what led to the vampire achieve. But the book of the Eradicating is a house, the vampire Bible, consists of the ancient texts which saw Frost and asserting that with a blob of vampire meat gives blood all the information he needs. He now that his own blood is vital in bringing Frost land to fruition. The logical move would be to avoid capture via any obvious trap. There is a big problem there. The vampires are just so good at taking Blade off. Slowly morphing into one of the undead is a fate Karen is unwilling to accept. Induction into a new world of blood is unacceptable, and she means to use her own knowledge of blood to help the transformation. The working conditions in the vampire hunting crew's warehouse are not exactly ideal for the enactment of the scientific method in Dorff. The doctors returned to her workplace and worked with an entire laboratory of the equipment that would make Beverly movies in New York struggle. Good thing too because her gives blood some new tool that could make victory possible. In order to saturate his own thirst, Blair uses a serum in place of actual human blood. This method is becoming less effective as time goes on. But now the soldier of misfortune has on his side. Karen gets to work on the cure of herself and a new serum for Blade. The scientific journey gives her rise to some wealth, failure justice as newfound weaponry for Blade, while experimenting with an on vampire blood. He discovered that it exploded on contact. Its potent reaction that it definitely called for weaponization. The crew later to be into wild and inserted them into what can only be described as combat syringe, whatever you call them. The accidental discovery of this new weapon is the only reason. Tower does not prey to an powerful race of the hungry vampire. Blade is known as a daywalker and it stands to reason. We get to see him out on a sunlight stroll. The hero is out running in rain when he comes upon a vampire. Another vampire is unable to be in the sunlight without having their flesh melt off and bursting into the flame. The hero-villain conversation ends with Frost tossing a girl into the street, where she nearly gets flawed into a bus driver with either no eyeball or no brakes. Blade does what heroes do and saves her. By the section, Frost's hope for her has already been put into motion. The vampires have discovered where Whistler and Blade stack up, and while the Daywalker is out by, they raid the place. It's another carefully laid pieces of Frost's plan. In order to unleash a law magra, they need Blade's blood, and he certainly won't give it willingly. Poking the bear is never recommended, but in this case, how it works. Frost puts his best foot forward in his attempt to infuriate our hero. It's actually not so much an attempt as it is a built success. The vampire leaves a man-clad Whistler behind to slow it down. Blade is able to say goodbye, but he is so angry that he knowing into a trap laid by Frost. The vampire hunter is able to put his new weapon on display by playing in the syringe into the chest and skull of some undead security guard. Cool guys don't look at explosion, so he further into the vampire then while is defeated, Fuse explode into a goofy fountain of blood behind him. There are few things that could distract Blade for his current mission of the vegans. Actually, we can say there is only one thing and Frost has exactly that one thing. Blade's mummy, the woman, is alive and well, chilling in a penthouse and is sipping on hemoglobin Martin. The brief tender row units distract our unwitting hero long enough for Frost and his gang to be temporarily put him out of the commission, subsequently depriving Blade of his serum weakened blade and causes a thirst to envelop him. Blood gods always come with a specific instruction. Using a near invisible salicial would do something to ensure their reward be reasonably attainable. For example, binding themselves to a dead trigger their release should you keep it alive for more than a month. Like the dramatic, the ritual to release La Magra involves an ancient temple built for his sole purpose. Frost took control of the vampire council not just because he resented, but also because his blood and god ritual require 12 pure blood. Each of these natural born vampire must be positioned in the temple among a series of glyphs. At the top of the temple is a chamber made specifically to house our fire blade.
In 1998 was a good year for Wesley Snipes, quickly igniting an all-round action hero. His role as Blade sparked a franchise with a high debut. Wesley brought the right mix of martial art, courage maneuver, and a no approaches ass kicking into his comic book character turned film franchise. Blade 1 2 inspired to more sequel and a short-lived TV series. Without Wesley, Deacon Frost, played by the younger Stephen Dorff, gave the vampire side a new leader with his latest night. Smart as approach to kicking some juice into the old role with some rave inspired edge. The film was produced by New Line, Cinema and Imaginary Forces. Imaginary Forces previously only limited to providing great title sequences to new hot film properties. Blade is the one J. Walker. He was born from a mother who was just beaten before prayer to give labor. He is much feared. The advantage is that he is not affected by sunlight, like the rest of his kind. He also seemed to be able to be handle garlic pretty well while possessing the vampire's strength. Blade is a vampire hunter who wishes to rid the world of their evil messes. His approach has always been a vigilant with a cause cell slaying vampire on side. It probably does not hurt, terrified like a ninja. As we come into our introduction to the Blade film, we are taken into a mid-progress wave. Those nasty vampires like to play with their food of which luring unexpected bodies into an all-night dance room appear to do the trick. I in fact love this intro which mark it as one of my favorite of a vampire film. Actress Jackie Lord as recall mark of brief cameo as he brings her mad sketch into the air. While their chance the overhead water valves began to shower the crowd in pure blood.
The Vampire Shadow Council is concerned, led by one of the elders. They explained that accepting a low profile has been a reason for their lasting existence. With the human, a simple coexistence. Deacon Frost has another plan. He needs to dominate the species. It will be led by an ancient ritual that will unleash the ultimate power. A blood god ritual called La Magra. The ritual has long been kept in secret, protected by an undishable code. But with the help of a modern technology, Frost is on the verge of discovery. The ritual is to be performed in a location called Temple of Eternal Night.
The film itself uses a modern style of representation using perspective shot, first edit, and close-up zoom. Oddly enough, Blade received a mixed review, since outcome is really measured on a financial scale rather than a review scale. In Loki episode 4, the Marvel Cinematic Universe subtly confirmed that Blade will have one of its most powerful characters. During San Diego Comic Con in 2019, Marvel announced a ally would star as the titular half human and half vampire in the upcoming movie. The new film is a reboot of the Blade character, who was first brought to life on the big screen by Wesley Snipes in 1998. Marvel was widely praised for the casting early. An Oscar-winning actor, and Snipes even made a point of supporting the decision. Marvel previously teased the existence of vampire in Thor. Ragnarok in the film called a character played by director Taika offers Kris Thor a big wooden fork. The weapons seem to be fairly pointless. Korg has a solution. The character says it's not useful unless someone fighting off three vampire. There was a hotel together. First and foremost, the vampire line in Thor Ragnarok is all joke. At the time, It simply seemed like a reference to Vivetti's popular vampire-centric comedy. What we do in Shadow. However, with the announcement of Blade, the joke also seemed to be a no to be vampire existing in the MCU. Loki episode 4 ready to be lure of the vampire in Marvel movies, confirming Blade will be a formidable character. In the episode, the Vampire Variance Authority recaptured both Tom, Loki and Sophia T, putting them in separate holding area. In a meeting with the Jogo on Wilson's Möbius, asked to speak with Lady Loki but gets denied. He then makes an interesting comment to Vimy Hunter B15. You know we brought in Grey, Titan Vampire. Why is it the two orphans demigod are such a pain in the ass? Says Mobius stuff it's a throwaway moment when it comes to the event of the episode. Kree and Titans are powerful creatures in the MCU, and Mobius land ports vampire. Right here are them, besides being Marvel Force. Kree and the Titan are both much stronger than human. The alien races also seemingly have the ability to handle Infinity Stone. Josh Brolin, Thanos is an outlier when it comes to Bedos sailing from Titan. He is strong enough to be survived snapping his finger without the Infinity Stone on his gun belt. Also agree with Ronan Askew, Power Stone with his bare hand in the Guardian of the Galaxy. In the Loki scene, Mobius is clearly writing off the most dangerous creature he can think of, and vampires are near the top of the list. As powerful as vampire may be in the MCU, Blade is even stronger. He can go in sunlight, and he is immune to vampire bites. Additionally, Blade has super strength, agility, and healing power. Simply put, Blade has vampire strength and avoid many of their weakness. Besides his super ability, he is skilled fighter and talented at swordplay. By listing vampire alongside Titan and Grey, Mobius hint. Fake has announced that Ryan upcoming R-rated Deadpool prequel is the only R-rated movie that Marvel is planning to make anytime soon, suggesting that a new Blade movie will be rated PG-13 like the rest of the MCU. That might not be such a great idea. The three movie in Wesley Snipes, Blade trilogy were rated R and a very endless one, especially in the hand of the Tal Toro who made Blade IT section. Sequences of blood are so delight. Snipes also used the rating to add performances one-liner, like some if always trying to ice neck uphill. Kevin Feige has said that his upcoming third Deadpool movie in the only rated R effort in the Marvel's horizon right now. And this is a smart movie. Deadpool 3 could easily set a precedent of the MCU to release a bunch of rated R movie. Movies like Bird of Prey and the 2019 Hellboy reboot have shown that the rating can easily be used as a crutch for violence and excessive profanity. The MCU should not be overshooted. Ultra gore can easily be used excessively, like in the Saw sequel. A certain level of a gore is necessarily for a vampire story. It's impossible to make a movie about a blood-sucking undead without a good deal of hand-sucking blood. Technically, Blade is not a story about vampire. It's a story about a vampire slayer living in vampire. Impressive world, but if anything, that story requires even more blood than straightforward vampire stories. After more than a decade, the MCU has a pretty well established tone that an R-rated movie would disrupt. Wesley Snipes movies had no obligation to fit into a wider universe, but a new Blade reboot will be an entry in the large franchise. In the wider context of the MCU, it would make a more sense of the Blade reboot to be rated PG-13 even if the character is better suited to an editing R. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was arguably the most popular character in the Fox's X-Men franchise from the beginning, but in the action scene always felt restricted by the PG-13 ratings because, as proven by Logan, a guy with metal claw needs a rating to really shine. The same goes for Blade, whose solo movies will feel sanitized if the rating sensibility of his comic book is not translated to the screen faithfully. The only downside of editing our comic book movies is that kids can't be watch them on the big screen unless they have really cool, so their experiences of the franchise is limited. Blade is one of the Marvel's most awesome characters, and MCU's young audiences deserves to enjoy his on-screen adventure just as much as older fans. Essentially, with their horde of the vampire, their stories are horror, so Blade movies are horror movies above all. The MCU is moving into the horror genre with a Doctor Strange in the multiverse of medicines, so there is a precedent for the Blade reboot to be a horror movie. Movies like Daughter and A Quiet Place have proven that horror does not to be need auditing or to be truly scary, but it helps. Now that Iron Man and Captain America has cleared up some room in the lineup and Phase 4 is charging forward with a bunch of the new character. It will be interesting to see what the cast of the fifth Avenger movie like. If Blade's MCU adventure are rated PG-13, the character will be easier to integrate into the Avengers movie. There's probably one room for one rated wild card among God's mightiest hero. From a studio's perspective, the drawback of unrated is that it does not get in front of as many as an PG-13 movie. So it does not have such chance of box office success. But just like Deadpool, a Blade movie does not date to be cost $200 million. A movie about a daywalking and vampire hunter could be produced for around $50 million, which significantly lower the risk of unrating R. The main appeal of the rating is the creative freedom it allows, but that freedom can be a bad thing if wielded recklessly. There's an unnecessarily glory scene in the Bird of the Prey that did not need to exist in which even MC Gregor cuts off a man's face. The restriction of the PG-13 rating can sometimes result in a stronger movie because a filmmaker can't rely on violence and profanity to get the audience's attention. Feige has announced that Ryan Reynolds' upcoming rated Deadpool prequel is the only rated movie that Marvel is planning to make anytime soon, suggesting that a new Blade movie will be rated PG-13 like the rest of the MCU. That might not be such a great idea. The three movies in Wesley Snipes' Blade trilogy were rated R and they were endless film, especially in the event of the Del Toro, who made Blade IT section sequences a blood-soaked delight. Snipe also used a rating R to widely profane one-liner like some murder are always trying to ice scared a film, which have to be that fine the character. Kevin Feige has said that the upcoming third Deadpool movie is only R-rated effort on Marvel's origin right now, and this is a smart movie. Deadpool 3 could easily set a precedent for the MCU to release a bunch of rated movies. Movies like Bird of Prey and 2019 Hellboy report have shown that the rating R can easily be used as a charge for gratuitous violence and excessive for profanity. Ultra gore can easily be used excessively, like in the Saw sequel. A certain level of gore is necessary for vampire stories. It's impossible to make a movie about a blood-sucking undead without a good deal of on-screen blood. Technically, Blade is not a story about vampire. It's a story about a vampire slayer living in a vampire lifestyle world. But if anything, the story requires even more blood and straightforward vampire stories. After more than a decade, MCU has a pretty well established tone that an R-rated movie would disrupt. Wesley Snipes movies had no obligation to fit into a wider universe, but a new Blade reboot will be an entry in the larger franchise. In the wider context of the MCU, it would make more sense of the Blade reboot to be rated PG-13 even is a character his better sound to be an rating R. Hugh Jackman's Wolverine was arguably the most popular character in the Fox X-Men franchise from the beginning, but his action scene always felt restricted by the PG-13 rating because, as proven by the Logan, a guy with metal glove who need an R rating to really shine. The same goes for Blade. Those solo movies will feel sanitized if the rated sensibility. If his comic book is not translated to the screen faithfully. The only downside with the rated comic book movies is that kids can't watch them on the big screen unless they have really cool parents. So their experiences of the franchise is limited. Blade is one of the Marvel's most awesome characters, and MCU's young audiences deserve to enjoy his own screen adventure just as much as older fans. Essentially, with the hair, their horde of the vampire. Blade stories are horror stories. To Blade movies are horror movies above all. The MCU is moving into the horror genre with a Doctor Strange in the multiverse of the madness, so there is a precedent for the Blade reboot to be a horror movie. Now that the Iron Man and the Captain America has cleared up some room in the lineup and the Phase 4 is a charging forward with a bunch of the new character. It will be interesting to see what the cast of the fifth Avenger movies look like. If Blade MCU Adventure are rated PG-13, the character will be easier to integrate into the Avenger movie. There is probably only room for a rotated or will guard among its mightiest hero. From a studio perspective, the drawback of a rated movie is does not get a front of as many as on a PG-13 movie, so it does not have much chance of box office success. But just like Deadpool, a Blade movie does not need to be cost $200 million. A movie about a Daywalker vampire hunter could be produced for around $50 million, which significantly lower the risk of an rating R. The main appeal of the rating R is the creative freedom is allowed, but the freedom can't be elaborating if it is wielded recklessly. There is an unnecessarily gory scene in a bird of the prey that did not need to be existed in which woman MC Gregor cuts off a man's face. The restriction of the PG-13 rating can sometimes result in a stronger movie because the filmmakers can't rely on violence and profanity to carry audience's attention. Wesley Snipes' opinion about MCU Blade Report not reading and R rating got some weight. In 2011, Marvel was given back the right to be Blade franchise and interest in the Breaking Blade into the MCU has been ongoing since 2016, with various production pushed back, delaying in the reboot's timeline. Blade can expect a late 2023 or mid 2024 release at the time of writing. Still, while reduction for the MCU Blade report is far from being in the infancy, the film is yet to begin shooting. With that in mind, Blade's potential rating remained a subject of much speculation. The MCU is yet to be produced and rated project with its heading toward generally darker property. Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness horror leading pushed in their PG-13 rating, showing that MCU was willing to move in more sinister direction. Even before Multiverse of the Madness, however, the MCU has still used a darker tonal approach before. Captain America the Winter Soldier tackled the theme regarding terrorism and mind control, while Avengers Infinity War was not allied in the treatment of killing half of the universe's population, and even compounded by Avenger Endgame directly processing that trauma. Meanwhile, MCU Disney Plus show like WandaVision and Moon Knight have more recently approached supernatural element while also attempting to explore more mature themes regarding grief and mental illness. With this kind of build-up, our Blade report is becoming more appropriate for the MCU. However, unrated may not be necessarily, despite the vampire, gore, and violence of film promises. Wesley Snipes made his opinion on the Blade rating R known in an interview with the comic book company in which he stated that as long as Blade is not true and organic to be subject matter, the plot and the world that's created, and R rating may not be necessarily. Since the likes of the Deadpool, Logan, This is Doom Patrol, and Amazon's Prime the Why have made rated superhero properties more accepted, a Blade report with less of a rating limitation on its violence would be more marketable today. However, Snipes curating the comment carry all the more weight came considering that the original Blade trilogy was rating hard itself. The MCU's Blade report should certainly aim for at least a hard PG-13 if it's to honor the subject's matter excessively violent mature. However, it also does not need to be forced an R rating for the sake of promising that violence sibling so risk under believing on Blade's core quality. With that said, the MCU should not repeat the Black Widow's mistake of dividing darker theme in order to be maintained a PG-13 rating. Blade needs to approach an R rating carefully that go in that direction. As Nye pointed out, Blade's development should hold more priority than its action. It should not be a rated R for the sake of providing gratuitous sex and violence, so far such as an approach into the transparent of a marketing tactic. However, the MCU should also widen the watering Blade known for the sake of a PG-13 rating, as it has with a previous project. Like the aforementioned Black Widow, R-rated Blade should no doubt be a fun and highly anticipated, especially with it to be a first MCU film with a rating, even with its expected references from the Snipe trilogy. The MCU's Blade still has a glory, all reigning legacy to uphold. The MCU's future holds rich promises after earning back Blade's right, and its violent subject materials make it a perfect for an R rating. Still, the MCU should not pursue the rating by forging Blade's core character and story element. With that in mind, Blade's potential rating remained a subject of much subject speculation. The MCU is yet to be produced and rating project that is heading toward generally darker properties.
Marvel concept artists revealed what Blair's alternate MCU costume looked during the Deadpool and Wolverine development. Wesley Snipes made his MCU debut as one of Deadpool and Wolverine's multiverses characters appearing in the Void as a pronoun Blade variant who joins forces with other survivors to oppose Nova. Blade fought Cassandra Nova's Benjamin, half Deadpool and Wolverine escaped the Void, and dropped one of the Deadpool and Wolverine's funniest Easter egg in the form of a jab at the MCU's Blade. On Instagram, Marvel concept artist Wes Bird shares a few pieces of the Deadpool and Wolverine concept art featuring Wesley Snipes' Blade. Bird's images include a Blade costume that looks similar to the one the Vampire Hunter wears in 1998 Blade movie. I inspired with a trench coat and a leader outfit. Check out our images below. Blade's new costume ditches the black leather trench coat and replaces it with armor blade. It's unknown whether this blade variant was drawn with a blade Trinity outfit and later updated his cloth with armor he designed in the void, or if he spent more than 20 years fighting vampire and upgrading his costume until he was born and thrown into the void. Either way, Blade is clearly older and chose to exchange agility for protection. Blade's alternate concept art costume would have been hinted at very different backstory. Deadpool and Wolverine use any of this look. Wesley Snipes' Blade probably would have had lived more extravagant experiences in the between the event of overly received Blade. Trinity and his battle against Nova's forces, from mastering the katana or developing the military skill and possibly becoming a vampire killing priest. Blade's alternate costume provide a material for other variants somewhere out here in the world multiverses. With MCU's Blade movie experiencing some turmoil, Marvel would be wise to be considered the failures and successes of the iconic Wesley Snipes trilogy. The MCU's Blade introduces the famed vampire hunting superhero into the MCU timeline. After Wesley Snipes' Blade made a triumphant cameo appearances in Deadpool and Wolverine. This opened up questions about Snipes returning for another Blade movie, or even replacing them as the franchise new Blade. These are completely speculative, but there are certainly lessons to learn from the Snipes iconic trilogy. The original Blade trilogy starring Wesley Snipes was in the superhero genre. Released between the 1998 and 2004, the film carved out a niche by the blending action, horror and comic book element in a way that had already been before. Snipes' portrayal of Blade, a half-vampire, half-human warrior on a mission to rid the world of every vampire, was both iconic and definitive. One of the key reasons the original Blade trilogy succeeded was its commitment to genuine horror. The film did not shy away from exploring the darker, more terrifying aspect from the vampire mythos, which set them apart from the typical superhero fare. The vampire in the Blade trilogy were not just enemies to be vanquished. They were monsters in the very sense of the word, dripping with its menace and evil. The eerie atmosphere, unsettling the imagery, and gruesome scene of the bloodshed made the Blade trilogy a unique fusion of horror and action. For MCU's Blade to be resonate with fans of the original trilogy, it must embrace this horror element fully. While the MCU is known for the light-hearted tone, and family-friendly content. The Blade movie would benefit from a darker approach, with success in horror-infused superhero stories, such as Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. There is potential for the MCU to push boundaries with a Blade. In the original Blade trilogy, Abraham Whistler was more than just a mentor to Blade. He was the emotional anchor of the series. Whistler's gruff, demure, tragic backstory and deep sense of purpose provided a counterbalance to Blade's stoic and often isolated nature. Whistler humanized the Blade, offering a glimpses into the heart of the vampire hunter that might otherwise remain hidden beneath the his tough exterior. This dynamic was crucial in making Blade a relatable and compelling character, rather than just a heartless killing machine. For MCU's Blade to be captured the same emotional depth, it needs a character like Whistler to serve as Blade's confidant, mature and moral complex, without a strong supporting character like Whistler. The new Blade is losing the emotional core that made the original film resonate with the audiences. One of the aspects that made Wesley Snipes' Blade to be memorable was his unapologetic relentlessness. Blade was not your typical hero. He was a relentless, cold-blooded warrior driven by a singular mission to eradicate the vampire. This anti-hero person set him apart from other superheroes of the time and made him stand out character in the genre. Blade was not concerned with saving the world or upholding justice in a traditional sense. His motivations were deeply personal, rooted in the vengeance and survival. For MCU Blade to be successful, it must avoid turning Blade into a conventional Marvel. He should not be another bright, shiny avenger who fight for the greater good with a quip and smile. Instead, Blade should remain a complex, morally ambiguous, whose methods are often brutal and merciless. By embarrassing Blade's anti-hero nature, the MCU can create a film that offers something different from its usual fare. The Blade trilogy was known for its stylish and intense fight scenes, which were some of the most memorable aspects. Wesley Snipes, a trained martial art, brought a level of physicality and precision to the role that made the Blade's combat sequences thrilling to watch. Whether it was a high-octane showdown in a vampire nightclub or a one-on-one duel with a powerful vampire, the fight scenes were choreographed with a level of detail and creativity that set them apart from other action films of the era. The MCU's Blade must deliver equally impressive fight scenes in an age where audiences are accustomed to be elaborate CGI battle. The MCU's Blade should focus on practical hand-to-hand combat that showcases the skill and agility of its protagonist. The fight choreography should be dynamic, brutal, and visually striking, with a focus on creating the memorable moment that will stay with the audiences. The original Blade trilogy was filled with the sense that commented Blade's status as an icon, from his dramatic superhero landings which originated in a blade, to his effortlessly catching the sunglasses in midair. These moments, combined with his distinctive red trench coat, shades, and weapon, created a visual identity that was iconic and instantly recognizable. Blade's look was a crucial part of this appeal, making him one of the most stylish and memorable modern characters. The MCU should break a similar effect with its Blade. The costume design, the way Blade moves, and the way he interacts with his environment all play a role in establishing his own screen persona. The MCU should aim to create moments that are as visually iconic as those in the original trilogy, ensuring that Blade's style is both timeless and unique. One of the defining characters of the original Blade trilogy was its R-rated content, which allowed the film to fully embrace the violence and glory of its subject matter. The blood-soaked battle, gruesome vampire death, and dark adult theme are integral to the series' success. setting it apart from its more sanitized superhero controversies. The R ratings gave the filmmakers the freedom to be explore the brutality of players but without compromises. With MCUs gradually exploring R-rated territory through projects like the Deadpool and Wolverine, there is a real possibility that a new Blade could allow suit. For the move to be do justice to the character's brutal nature, it should not shy away from the violence and horror that defines Blade's world. An R-rated Blade would allow the filmmaker to push the boundaries of a typical Marvel movie and deliver a film that is true to the spirit of the comic and the original trilogy. In its installment of the original Blade trilogy, Blade was supported by a cast of compelling characters who enriched the story and he provided additional layer to the narrative. Whether it was to be tech-savvy South in Blade 2 or a vampire hunter in Blade, Trinity these characters added up to the films and have to flesh out Blade's world. They served as a foil, allies, and sometimes even antagonists. The new Blade movie will need a similarly strong supporting cast to keep the story engaging and dynamic. A well-rounded supporting cast can help to be humanize Blade, provide comic relief, or introduce new threat that tests its resolve. By building a strong ensemble of characters around Blade, the MCU can preserve Blade's stoic nature while ancillary player drive the narrative forward. While the Blade trilogy made use of the CGI for some of its more fantastical elements, the most effective vampire effect were those achieved through practical means, the intangible physical presence of the vampire made them more menacing and grounded in reality, enhancing the horror element of the film. In contrast, the few instances of CGI vampire, particularly in Blade, Trinity often felt less convincing and it detracted from the overall impact of the sun. Practical effects, such as makeup, prosthetics, and animatronics, allowed for a more visceral and immersive experiences. The CGI struggled to be replicated at the time. Despite advances in CGI technology, the MCU's Blade would be wise to be embarrassed practical effect for its vampire. While CGI can be used to be augment certain scenes, relying too heavily on its risk making the vampire feel less real and more cartoonish. Wesley Snipes is one of the coolest characters in the superhero cinema. Snipes brought a unique blend of the charisma, intensity, and physicality to the role. His portrayal was defined by a calm, collected demeanor, dresses sharp and an unwavering sense of purpose. Snipes' blade was effortlessly cool. Whether he was slicing through vampire or delivering a deadpan one-liner, this coolness became one of the defining traits of the character, and a key reason for the trilogy's enduring popularity. The MCU's blade should seek to be replicated. This is no small feat, given the high bar set by Snipe, but it has become interesting to the character. The new Blade is an incredibly talented actor, with the potential to bring his own brand of cool to the role. The key will be to allow Blade's character to be maintain his edge, his confidence, and his unique style. One of the more notorious moments in the Blade's trilogy come from Blade Trinity, where Wesley Snipes' eyes were digitally altered, a scene due to behind-the-scene conflict. This incident has since become infamous, not just for the awkwardness of the CGI itself, but also for the story behind it. The difficulties on set, particularly between the Snipe and the production team, led to be a situation where the actor refused to open his eye during a take, forcing the filmmakers to use CGI to correct the issue. The result was a moment that felt jarring and out of place, serving as a reminder of the strained relationship behind the scene. For the MCU's Blade to avoid similar pitfall, the MCU's Blade must foster a positive and collaborative working environment. Ensuring good communication and respect between the cast and crew can prevent a situation like the one that led to be infamous CGI, as in Blade Trinity. A great opening scene sets the tone for the whole movie, and when Blade first aired, the horrific opening scene became iconic. The Blade franchise centers on the Marvel character, whose mother was bitten by a vampire while pregnant, resulting in Blade being born a half vampire. The Blade movie trilogy follows his journey, blending horror and action, including some excellent fight choreography. The best horror movie opening scene look you immediately, and Blade does exactly that. A man is on a date with a mysterious woman, who takes him to be a rave. Soon the sprinkles begin to pour blood as the portier turn out to be the vampire. While the unfortunate man slips on the floor, he finds himself in front of Blade, who is spotless and armed. The horror genre has some of the best movie opening scene of all time. But while many great horror movie openers just need to be terrifying, Blade had to be introduced to culture too. Vampires have been a popular horror movie subject for decades, and the genre can feel same blood introduction to be hidden vampire rave instantly. Showed something interesting about the way they live. The scene has very little dialogue. Once the character entered a rave, and yet the visual of the people dancing the bloodboard is unforgettable. In just 5 minutes, it establishes a world, sets a slick and action-heavy tone for the movie, and introduces a Blade as a character. Unfortunately, a harsh reality of watching Blade is that the first scene is better than the last. Critics and audiences do not always agree on whether a movie is good or not, and horror movie can be extremely polarizing. Critics panned Blade, giving it a 59% positive Rotten Tomato score. On the other hand, audiences loved the over-the-top action and rated Blade 78% positive. Critics also hated the next Blade movie, and audiences felt it similarly. While some horror movies have aged badly due to reason, like outdated depiction of a group, lazy stereotype, and bad writing, Blade has not. Many scenes in the Blade trilogy hold up well today, and while the special effects now look considerably dated, this cement the original movie filmed in the 1990s, making it a fun and most logic watch even today. While the much anticipated Blade's reboot appeared to be stuck in a development hell, one scene that it should not try to recreate his original movie's blood rave. When Blade was first screened in 1998, the iconic moment was an unexpected shock, and it would be impossible to be replicated now, especially after it appeared to be referenced in a Wednesday dance floor scene. Blade opening scene as a time capsule to be 1990. The characters are wearing cyberpunk style with sunglasses, shiny fabric, and platform boot, while the song used in the techno, Confusion by New Order. Rave culture was a 1990s staple, so even recreating the moment in a modern club would feel out of place, leaving Blade's opening scene as an unbeatable moment in horror. Based on a Disco Decades comic book written by Mark Wolfman and illustrated by John Golan, this late 90s film highlights several effective horror movie styles, genres and blazing martial arts sequences, but remain notable and noble today for its decaded attempt to be the vampire and vampire lore of millionaire audiences. More than that, and from the perspective of a decade later navigation film, Seamer emphasizes on issue of race in modern America. In Blade of Vampire, are not be romantic, while in Rescue tragic in Breed of Annie Rice. Interview with a Vampire, 1994 or Forever Night, 1992 to 1996 nor are they back until. Savage Annie Desert Bugs of the From Dusk Till Dawn, 1996 and John Blade appear in an unpurposeful reflection of the case conspiracy phobia and under the surface fear on unseen. Rich cables pulling the suffering in America. Blade commences on 1996 and the dawn of the culture era in American history. A baby is born to an African American woman who has been bitten by a vampire. Some 30 years later, the counterculture movement is dead. Big business regained during the dot-com boom, and that child. That orphan is a man called Blade. This vampire human hybrid is also known as a Devaka in some circles because of the human ability to survive in sunlight, and the help of his mentor and friend. Whistler, Blade, no wages and were against the undead souls infesting the Los Angeles. After interrupting the vampire rave called Bloodport, Blade rescued a named Karen from a vampire gangster, and then began to investigate the latest scheme of vampire world. Deacon Frost forces are attempting to bring about a brand of undead by raising an ancient vampire. This attempt to resurrection not only raises blood ire, but is served a leader of the status quo seeking vampire nation. Finally, Frost attempted to use Blood's very low blood to be bring about a La Magra's ascension. The character of Blade for all intent and purpose a superhero. First came to life in the marvelous The Tomb of Dracula, issue 10 in the 1972. Originally, he was a tough-talking, shade-wearing representation of the blaxploitation or era filmmaking. In iconic Blade's enemy was an older, white-haired vamp Deacon Frost, an outbreak young rebel, and outside the film who shared his name. Kris, alright, I guess I do have the full body suit going on. Still, when two these guys sleep in their ridiculous hyperbolic pressure chamber, the vampire also take a pair of bear and the pull of the fangs out of the guy they kill. Which though this movie is credited, is a pretty awesome bit of old school gangster meets supernatural villain bite of symbolic. That is pretty cool. Blade takes a segment from the book of the Erebus to Whistler where he disfigures some of the blood god Rachel and Karen. In hospital with hospital machinery that she personally threw into a truck and brought to be Blade HQ. In her attempt to create a vampire cure happen upon a compound that makes vampire blood explode. This will be used to be great effect later. Creates the fact that his movie just code introduces an atom that makes vampire explode in a hilarious spot because it's like a getting that lost upgrade in a video game. And because Blade has this and yet the movie goes on for another 40 minutes. With two more sequel, you would think that would be the game changer. Meanwhile, Karen figured out that Whistler has cancer because Whistler's coughs are loud. Whistler in return find out that Karen has a few days at most to go before becoming a full-fledged vampire with his compassionate bedside manner. Red goes out to buy a newspaper and ends up in a standoff with Deacon Frost, who's taken a little girl as a hostage. When Blade refuses to come in a willing cry, Frost goes through the girl into traffic and Blade basically ignores her until a car is like 5 seconds away from hitting her. Those were the dangers you faced before you could get your news on the internet. Say what you want about brain dying, but at least I'd cut on vampire hostage crisis. Back at the Blade, HQ Karen's developed a cure for people who have been turned into a vampire. Although it won't work on Born Vampire because Born Vampire have it as part of their genetic makeup, rather than a viable bull. Then Frost and a bunch of the vampires show up. Still Karen because the movie needs a damsel in distress, and completely ruin Whistler and screw up the majority of Blade's HQ. When Blade gets back in, her finds a bunch of bodies, a Frost familiar and a completely messed up Whistler, who makes Blade leave his gun just so he can body himself out of the enormous amount of pain Donald Leak and his boys rolled him into. Kris, again in retrospect, this is maybe the most hilarious part of this entire movie. That destroy Whistler, he's a bloody mess, and they give him to choice to either become what he hates or kill himself. And he chooses the latter. Kris, or totally, it's been a while since I have seen it, but I am pretty sure that the opening sequences of Blade 2 is about bringing the Whistler back to life and curing him vampirism. I do think he finally dies with Blade. Trinity so that the Blade can start hanging out with a Night Stalker. But hell who's to say will not come back in Blade 4. Blade gets readily made and uses its material in the Blood Cave to create a series that containing a formula Karen created that blows up vampire blood. Karen's forest is still long waiting for Blade and she decided to start provoking him by pointing out that he is a deduced he was not a born vampire. Even offering him to be cured, she is created before they flip out, and talks about how La Magra is going to make everyone into a vampire. Across the world, which sounds like a pretty awful deal for vampire, since now they don't have a damn thing to eat. He also pointed out that Blair's blood is the key ingredient. I guess since vampire philosophers thousands of years ago figured a daywalker would show up at some point. See, there's a thing. A vampire having a 100% accurate trophy cases. They won by magic fine. That's totally acceptable because just by introducing vampire, you are establishing that magic exists. But when you make vampirism a virus that can be cured, if a reasonable intelligent were to think about it for literally 2 days, and say that they are just allergic to garlic and have really sensitive skin, so that is ultraviolet light that hurt them and not be purifying light of day, then you kind of lose the ability to go. But ancient magic prophecies are totally real. Unless they just figure that the odds were pretty good, that somebody would bite a pregnant woman. Eventually, I guess, which seems like a safe bet given a long enough timeline. The movie is totally inconsistent in its relationship between science and magic. Blair shows up at her forces compound to be rescue Karen, loaded with the vampire killing serum dart, and crashes it through the front door on a motorcycle like could drive before shooting up the entire lobby. Even the human who worked for them, he fired some kung fu vampire and given them the serum, and they explode in a totally gross of fashion. He goes to a door and enters the white room to meet the architect. I mean, he's no vampire mom. And then he becomes it's a superhero movie. Frost shows up and he is beaten with a taser nightstick and tells him that he bite his mom and actually created Blade as well. At least they have already established that Blade has, whatever unholy reason, a perfectly clear memory of his birth. So he can remember what his mom looked like. And she has not got age because she is vampire. But how does she know Blade's her kid? She has not seen him in 30 years. How does Stephen Dorff know? Everyone gets shipped out to be middle of some random desert to be underground. The leader of the 12 clans or whatever are placed in circle. And as Karen finally claws her way out of the vampire ex-boyfriend pit, the ritual begins for as his girlfriend gets placed with a smart talking clan leader and is straight up stake him. Which you would think would see of the ritual. While Karen goes and saves blood after he's already given a whole ton of blood, forcing him to be freed of her to be regained her trend. However, Blade's blood is already moving to the circulatory Rob Goldberg vampire machine. With a drop so loud the leader said. Meanwhile, Karen's repeatedly asking Blade to stop sucking more blood. Except he won't, which is kind of uncomfortable. But she does not use safe word, so we can assume she was actually okay with it. And if nothing else, it's not quite as uncomfortable as Blaze trying to seduce him and rubbing her face all up on his mouth while she's tied up in the iron blade. Just as Blaze stops sucking blood and he regains his strength, a big giant drop of blood falls on Deacon, transforming him into a La Magra. Blade fights his mother as Karen goes to try to stop the ritual, which is now causing a bunch of crazy electricity to come out of everybody's forehead. Then as Blade takes his own mother, he dwells again later, all turned into a flying skeleton that injured Frost and he transformed him into a Deacon Frost with a red eye. It's like the end of the rigors of the Rost arc, but with the vampire, and somehow nowhere near as good as that sound. Also, to be honest, I would probably pay decent money to see a version of Raider with Wesley Snipes as Indy and Stephen Norrington as Willie. Not as a movie, but definitely on Broadway. Then Blair shown up, easily dissipates Donald Lake with a tri-fire and gets into a badass carrot fight where he totally preened around the room. Like everybody, in this scene, fight like one of the Jokers gone for Batman 89, and Karen kills Force's girlfriend with a vampire exploding mag. The girl's head, exploding because of pepper and garlic spray, is seriously one of the best moments in this entire movie. There is nothing about it that is not pure. Ridiculous insanity. Her head exploded because of having paper spray squirted into her mouth. I can't even write a joke about it because I am paralyzed by all possibilities. After he is beaten up, I'll go on with a sweet 25x combo and double grapple takedown. He gets into a sword fight with a Deacon Frost and cut him in half. Blaze sword fight with him for a bite and eventually throws his sword hit first into the crack in the wall next to his vampire exploded so that the hit safely eventually goes off and cuts both of sword and the serum free from the wall. Blade throws some of the serum at Frost, pauses and gives the movie's unquestionable signature line, some murderers are always trying to ice scared. Frost explodes, Blade and Karen go outside, and Blade asks to Karen to cure because someone needs to be around to kill a Ashol vampire, especially in Russia, where we have an epilogue where Blade was a woman from a Russian vampire. The end. To be honest, it's a pretty ending, so it does continue the movie's theme of absolute insanity and hilariously cool movie. Like Blade cutting off Daniel's leg head and catching his own sunglasses, as the dudes had around him, and the fact that if Rose pulls the katana out of the freaking. It was the right choice given the alternative, but the flip side to that is that this movie's big ending is what we watch a dude who has been cat fighting vampire for 2 hours. Carrot fight a vampire. It's just a fight that goes on a little longer than the other. Has the added big bonus of having their sword explode into the spark every time they hit each other like in the first season of Power Ranger. And it's end with a last minute MC Goffin. Rather than anything that has to do with the two characters doing the actual some murders are always trying to be as scared of it. Which is maybe the best thing that Sunny in movie ever said. Honestly, the cast in this movie is great like it was nowhere near the murderous row of the great actor. That was a dark night. But everyone in this movie is absolutely perfect for their role. Snipes is as great as a tough as nail badass. Dorff plays Sam Army and Infallible perfectly. And Jonah League is just great as a guy you want to be punched in the face for this entire movie. The scene where Log is telling Deacon Frost what a super badass played is and talking about all his awesome movie. And Dorff goes along with his for a second. And then just now is genuinely hilarious villain moment. Blood is just one. It relentlessly paced. There is no fat, every element comes together. Not unlike Weir's later work on Batman Begin, and much like that film's obsession with fear. This one has an obsession with the blood. Blame everyone in this movie, maybe it's not good, but they are fun. You would also hard process to knock the sheer style of this movie. It's full of great stuff on that front. I mean the blood rave at the beginning is dumb at hell. But it's such a great visual of crazy vampire that can. I love how it blends good fashion firework with all the crazy head exploding the special effect. In a way, it's doing horror element as over the top as a Batman and the Robin did super heroic, but it make it work. Mostly because they are just a kung fu movie extras that get by Wesley Snipes for 2 hours. To say it hangs together on a thread as an insult to be thread. It has a super sense conception of vampirism, but it throw intentional blood god. I am not saying you could not pull off a marrying exterior and static like Blade to just that is probably was not even. It has the absolutely no idea what it want vampire to be, or really what it meant to be its villain to be. Like what exactly does Deacon Force want? To show the old pure blood vampire he is better than them. To turn everyone into a vampire they are all on equal footing. To somehow carry on a 30-year romance with the Blair's mom just to stick it home in case he somehow grows up to become the most relentless vampire hunter in the world. That turned everyone into a vampire. Plan is the worst plan ever. Who the hell benefit from that? Less than our entire food supply into the predator. This is not going to be end badly yet. There are like 80 consciousness in this movie, which average out to be about one every 90 seconds. I mean not to be no Karen or anything. She seems like a smart person, but it takes her literally 2 days to come up with a cure for vampirism. Is that all it takes? If so, why are there still vampire in Blade too? Well, a cure's only for new vampire. You would be thinking they would be distributed that globally top. Yeah, but just thinking about it for 5 seconds. There would be almost have to be more done vampire than pure blood ones. I don't want to be bringing Matt into this, but if you have two groups and something they bought you only have to be second group, you are going to be see a noticeable population differences. And the thing is, you can tell me I'm thinking too hard about this movie, but I am not to made a movie where people talked about all of these things. Terrible plotters aside, they succeeded purely on just being fun to watch. And again, we cannot overstate this enough. This was Marvel's first big success. It led directly to the revitalized X-Men and Spider-Man franchise, which in turn led to be current Avengers mega franchise. And considering David Goyer's involvement, you can also make a good case for his leading narrative to be Christopher Nolan Batman films too. This movie just has so much charisma, there is a palpable scene that everyone involved was actually having a lot of fun. And the crazy thing is, by conventional movie making a logic, it should not have happened. It's narrated about a very obscure non-superhero genre character, and to cap it for his minion minority character to boot. You would have a hard time getting that pitch made today, when comic book movies are actually big, let alone a year after Batman and Robin. But just visit us Wesley Snipes, say a bulleted vampire, and suddenly you have got major studio funding. I really wish studios would take another look at what they did the Blade and learn a lesson from it about taking those characters that it don't think work because of whatever reason and doing something with them. Every time I hear someone say they won't make a Wonder Woman movie because they don't think there's a market or something, I am like there were the three Blade movies. Unfortunately, this would be director Stephen last contribution to the Blade franchise, as he would be get replaced on the next film with Del Toro and later went on to the League of Extraordinary Gentlemen movie. And we all know what they turned out plus. Once you put in like that, it really makes sense that I have always bought his one, the rest of the trilogy. In addition, I don't have any real fear that a Marvel comic would be adapted well. It's hard to imagine now in the wake of the Avengers at all. But at time Blade was released, the most recent Marvel film where Howard does in 1986 and The Punisher in 1989. Neither of which set the box office on fire. Even worse, the only other Marvel property I would seen in the 90s was the unreleased. The bottom line is why I was not expecting much, and I was blown away. It was the first time I would seen a superhero movie that felt like a superhero movie. At least in the Marvel scene. Superman and Batman were great as well. But with the DC film, and those in particular, I always felt a certain resistance at goodness. Don't get me wrong, I loved this film, Superman in particular, but I would grown up a Marvel fan, and it felt like a blade out of action and a drama. Gave us a hero with believable flaws and placed him in a world that was like our but heightened, the flight over Brighton, the shadows darker. I remember thinking, damn, maybe we are finally in the cusp of making some decent Marvel superhero film. And we were X-Men in 1000, Spider-Man 2002, and Iron Man 2008. Everything since the DC films included. Would only one of them have happened to Bad Blade have bombed at the box office, maybe. Spider-Man in particular had a long gestation period, but I think it would have been a harder, and budget might have been a tighter. Who knows? Really, but I think of Blade as the first film of the modern Marvel cinematic era for good or bad. I decided to watch Blade as a stand-alone film, and this review is based on that without much consideration for the sequel. The follow-up films may have a better effect than a will be better film overall, but I wanted to give Blade's issue to as groundbreaking superhero film for a touch of horror. I have a DVD box set of the three Blade films. The picture quality is not great, but it's not serviceable, and there are a bunch of extra on each disc. I am not sure why I have not picked up the 2012 Blu-ray, but it's not in releases. If you are looking for a UHD release, a 4K version came out in December 2020. For streaming option, Sealing is the only services that include a blade for subs at the moment. It can be rented or purchased at any number of online vendors and shows up regularly on Sci-Fi. If you can handle commercial and edit, Blair starts strong, first with a literal plot of the main character, and then by one of the most iconic action sequences in the film. A helpless party boy is dragged to a rave at a maid packing land by party girl Breakwell. Unfortunately, this is more than just an industrial pop-up party. It's literal slaughterhouse where blood fell from the sprinkle and the vampire dance to be Ragnar. Before bringing Fang and playing with their food, it's tricking in the sequences as a blood figure in a strobe light and our beautiful people turn to blood-slicked splatter. And then Blair shows up. This is sort of the underground ended scene. Our Helsonics display of excess was part of the 90s early vampire matters. We love playing games like a vampire, the TV show like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and Anne Richie's interview with a vampire. The gothic bloodsucker were becoming sexy. Modern monsters whose long life gave them influences in society and a need to party their own life away.